All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about vintage Valentine's Day cards, holidays that have disappeared off the face of the earth, and the dawn of the automated teller machine.
Nice pull. Is that all you got? That's a lot of words for an empty thought. A nice pull. Yeah, here we go. Another long trip down the rabbit hole. A nice pull.
Well, Chris, we're approaching the middle, get this, of February, and we all know what that means. Anyone that's married or in any sort of a relationship of any kind, I assume even dating someone from the app, however that works, you're thinking about, of course, Valentine's Day.
Of course.
Now, I'm super lucky because my birthday, which is on the 7th of February, always gives me that trigger that,
Happy birthday again.
thank you, man. Oh, shit. We are only 7 days away from Valentine's Day is what that trigger is, right? So I get this sort of automatic, feeling in my gut every year when it's my birthday, but somewhere deep down, Chris, below the celebration, deep in the back of my psyche, I'm thinking, dude, have you gone to See's Candy? That's right, See's, S-E-E-S, it has to be that one. And I've learned over time. And have you gotten your wife the 1 pound of chocolate with half of them being the milk chocolate butters and the other half being the molasses chips? Not dark chocolate, Chris, milk chocolate. This is the conditioning over time, and I fucked up many times, but that is what she wants, and by God, that's what she gets, and a dozen roses and all the other stuff. But thank God, at least I have some kind of a warning that happens each year so that I don't screw up. But let me ask you, I already know the answer. We all have. Have you screwed up before and completely forgotten about Valentine's Day?
I don't know if I screwed up in the grand sense of like forgetting about it. I think I've always managed to pull something, I think, pull something together. To me, I think Valentine's Day, though, it came with just more, like anything else, more pressure, right? In the sense of like, yes, I know it's coming. And yes, when you're married, it's much different than when you're dating. I think there's that time when it's just like, especially like, let's say if you're in a fairly new relationship and it's like, how much is too much for Valentine's Day, right? At the same time, what if the person you're dating has done too much and it's just like, okay, well, I just got you See's Candy, and I can remember also one time, I think more than once, getting like a stuffed animal, not giving the stuffed animal, but getting a stuffed animal.
Huh.
And I think this is pretty universal. I don't know about you. It's like, guys don't want stuffed animals. It's not cute. It doesn't remind me of anything. There's no stuffed animals that make it's like it. You get that sort of, at least me. I don't know. You tell me. It was like, what am I gonna do with this? I got a Cookie Monster once from somebody. An actual Cookie Monster, and like, little 12-inch high cookie. It's like, and I had to bite my lip and say,
Wow, Chris, you bit your lip. That's very sexy.
yeah, I know. I'd say, hey, it's like, what do I? Thanks for the Cookie Monster. Here, and here I got you some earrings, or I don't even know what it was. Again, that inequity too about it. But I think it's always, like I said, it's one of those sort of pressure-filled holidays. It's not really a holiday, right? Everybody has to go to work and go to school. But a dinner, flowers. I think I think it's a holiday that shifts as your life shifts, right? And as you grow and as you evolve and as you go from dating to serious relationship to maybe getting married. I've been really fortunate, again, and I'm assuming you're the same way. It's like, at least person I've been married to just kind of was like, yeah, it's fine. It's a little bit fun. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Don't get me flowers because they're going to be dead in a week.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've always heard that there's women like your wife. We always hear legend. There's always the urban legend out there that there are these.
She is an urban legend.
Yeah, for sure. And they're like, oh, don't mess with that. That's kind of cliche. I'm not into that. But to know that there really is a person like
Right.
this that does Well, I'll be damned.
So that has taken the pressure off me, at least as an adult. But I can certainly remember, again, thinking and like I said, if you just started dating somebody, you could go over the top, or or you could do too little. I can remember. I think maybe the worst part, going back to our young ages, right, when it was like, remember those days when everybody had to bring Valentines, and you'd bring them to school, and you have to give them to everybody, or if you didn't have to give them to everybody, and then you didn't, it's like, let's face it, I wouldn't, unless there was that rule, I don't think anybody would ever necessarily, went home with 31 Valentines, from everybody in the class. And that in itself, it's just one of those over commercialized, gotten to the point, it's over the top. And the significance of it just sort of fluctuates.
Well, and you raise a good point, Chris, because Valentine's Day, just like anything, right? Just like a birthday or Christmas or any time there's gift giving of some kind, it's all about your specific relationship, right? And I'm totally down with celebrating Valentine's Day because I'm a kind of a sentimental dude that likes tradition. I don't know, for whatever reason. But what you're expected to do in your particular relationship for Valentine's Day, I think, is very indicative of where you are in that relationship. I think that's what you're saying, basically, right? And so obviously every relationship is different. With my wife, obviously we know that we love each other. It's all good. There's no expectation that we're going to do some giant adventure or go to France or be surprised with some crazy romantic thing. It's really just come down to, hey, were you thinking of me? Yes. Were you thinking of me enough that you actually made an effort of some kind? Well, yeah, because I went to that place where you have to stand there with women dressed like it's 1870 and the sea's candy. I don't know if you've ever been in there, Chris, but they all wear these outfits like they're in a tuberculosis ward from like 1810. And they're the nicest people ever. But if you're in there for more than 15 minutes, it is such a sickening, sweet, chocolatey aroma that just starts to give you type 1 diabetes after about 15 minutes. But yeah, there's always a line, and you're always behind the person that has to do 75 candies, and each one has to be taste tested, and every single one has to be discussed. Do you guys still have the orange whip curly cues? Let me check. Okay, in the meantime, can I taste one of the maple pecan sandadoos? Yeah, absolutely. So you're always going to get behind. Those were all made up, I think.
I was going to say, those are some nice deep pulls on the See's Candy menu there.
Those were made up.
Okay.
But my point is, effort was put in. Some form of misery had to be experienced. And you know what? I get that. I mean, I think that's totally valid. And I really actually enjoy doing that. Not just because my wife listens to this podcast. I really do. I enjoy going out of my way a little bit and doing nice things for her. But that's all it is. But I do feel for people that have an expectation in the relationship of something giant, right? Where Valentine's Day, for instance, has to be a huge gesture, right? Man, you better effing impress me. Otherwise, ... So again, Valentine's Day can also be a good indicator of the health of your relationship, right? Are you guys in a nice stasis situation where you trust each other and love each other and believe in each other? Or does somebody have to make up for some effed up thing that they did, and by God, you better effing come through on the most giant gesture ever?
Or is someone making the biggest statement of regard? Like, have you ever worked in an office where, let's just say that and it's Valentine's Day, and you see there are certain women in the office, and it's over the top. They get this giant, and let's say maybe it's somebody who's is not quite married or engaged, but she's got a boyfriend, and that boyfriend wants everybody in the office, if not the world, to know that she's got a boyfriend. And there's basically this enormous sort of arrangement and all this kind of stuff. It's like they might as well show up and just, I don't know, take a big leak around their cubicle.
That's right.
Right? Because and just mark your territory. We get it. We get it. I hear stories from you all the time about what a doofus he is and how unreliable he is. But here it is. It's Valentine's Day and everything is all right. Okay, so I think it's funny in that regard because you're right. I think the Valentine's Day is as you get older, the gifts tell a story, right? And not necessarily like this is how much this is how I really feel. Because I think you have to know, again, you know your audience like anything else. In my situation, the gift that I can give her that she appreciates the most is that I listen to her. Just gift giving in general to your wife. Or something, or your girlfriend or whatever. There's nothing that ever made me feel probably more uncomfortable as trying to like navigate the aisles of a Victoria's Secret. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, and the saleswomen are always like, they're young and attractive and they're asking you specific questions about your wife. And it's just like, it's like, I don't know if I want to share that information, number one. And if I'm basically saying it's like, well, this is what I think my wife would like, or this is what I would like. And then I'm telling this to this stranger, it's just made me a little bit uncomfortable, right? It's like, can I go to somewhere else? I know that's the whole idea behind a business like that. But man, it's never anything that I found, I don't know, is a comfortable or reasonable experience, right?
This is an entire side subject here that I forgot about, and you nailed it, man. The younger you are, the more fun it is to go into a Victoria's Secret, right? And
sure.
That's because, to your excellent point, you are going to run into, typically, obviously, someone that works there that's going to be younger. Absolutely. Just like people that work at Abercrombie and Finch, right? You're going to get someone that's attractive. And when you're younger, hey, it's fun. You can talk about that stuff. Oh, yeah. And you're almost trying to impress the person that works in the store, right? Oh, yeah. She wants this and this and this. And it's just a giant extension of flirting, for a lot of people when you go into the, do you notice how I said for a lot of people? Not necessarily implying me, Chris, just a lot of people.
No, I get it. I understand.
But the younger you are, it's an adventure and it's fun. And talking about that is, cool. But you're totally right, because once you start to get into your late 30s, 40s, and then of course us, late 50s, now it's really just like super personal. And the last thing you really want to be talking about with someone who is 23 years old or whatever, it's just like, no, and when they're giggling and laughing and going, oh, you should give her this, or have you tried this? In the back of their mind, they're just going, here comes another old dude, just a Gen X idiot coming in.
My dad, maybe. Right.
Oh man, here we go. Yeah, my dad, my grandpa, for God's sake. Yeah. So that is super awkward. And you're right, because I have not found myself going into a Victoria's Secret for over, I don't know, 20 years at least, because of that very reason. Awkward as hell.
Right. And asking their size and asking their this, it's like, you should know all this information. But it's still like, it's like I said, it's just awkward and uncomfortable. And like I said, I like that I could get kind of synced up. And that goes across all holidays. It's just like, she's not going to want this much. Like, well, I'd rather we bought something like this for the, again, this is my personal situation. For the backyard, it was just like, oh, okay. It was like, I have enough clothes. It's just like, okay, so kind of takes the fun out of it, but it also sort of takes the risk out of it at the same time, because, I don't know, any kind of gift giving, when they end up returning that gift, it's just like, well, I failed. It's like I chalk that up to my failures in life, that I have something else that I didn't do, and someone returning your gift versus somebody wearing your gift and loving your gift. And so, but again, they're all different. But I think that's part of it. You should know that. I should know that by this point in time. You know exactly how to execute, and I should know how to execute. And I think that in itself is a gift, right? But Valentine's Day, now there's something called Galentine's Day, I guess, where women who are not married or have and they all get together and go to happy hour or whatever. It's like,
can I just say that that's a much healthier way to do it than the person that you just described in the average office that has her entire cubicle just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely obliterated with, flowers and candy and all this stuff. It's just the ultimate projection, right? I mean, it could even be interpreted as kind of sad, right? When you see someone that just has shit tons of Valentine's
Absolutely.
gifts and presents, it's like, oh man, you almost want to, give them a hug. Are you okay? Is everything all right at home? What's going on, man? Galentine's Day actually that's pretty clever. Where you really just hang out with your friends and enjoy the holiday on your own terms and
Mm-hmm.
do it the way you want. I think that's freaking awesome.
Right.
But
Right.
Chris, that brings us back in the Wayback Machine, obviously, where, like we were talking about just a moment ago, we are in grade school, right? And it's Valentine's Day. And at least at mine, and I guess we can compare notes, this was how it went down. You had to write up a Valentine on your own for each and every person in the class, right? And everybody was pulling from the same location, right? You would go to Save On or whatever the place was, the drugstore,
If you weren't on a field trip, right?
and your mom or dad would buy you a big box. Yeah, you'd get a big box of Valentines. And so most of the Valentine's Day cards that you would see at school were some version of the ones that you bought, at least at my school. And you had to say something, it was always like, I hope you will be my Valentine. And it showed a picture of a bumblebee, or like the great one on The Simpsons where Ralph Wiggum gets one from Lisa Simpson and it says, I choose you. And there's a picture of a train,
Right.
they were all like that. And then you would, of course, get the candy hearts, right? You'd get the boxes of candy hearts that all had the little imprinted
Right. Right.
Be Mine and all the other stuff that was on there. I still love
Mhm.
those to this day. They're super gross, but delicious at the
You love
same
the gross
time.
because you have a predisposition for the gross candies. I think that's well established, right? But okay,
Well, those little candy hearts, those are that's the same chemical compound as as like a sweet tart or a bottle cap, right? They're just kind of that same chalky,
a Smartie, something like that, right?
that's the same chalky texture as Lickamade, right? That stick, that tongue depressor shaped Rolade
Yeah,
that you would get from Lickamade.
exactly. Fun dip.
And yeah, but anyway, and then we would walk around the room and everybody would have a little paper sack taped to the back of their chair. And this would be the same sack you would use for a sack lunch. And you would go around like the mail person, right? And you would drop one Valentine in the back of each person's chair. Or I think even they designated
Wow.
somebody to be Cupid, and that person got the honor of delivering all of the different Valentines. But, it was inclusive. Nobody was left out. And so even the nerdiest kid still got Valentines. But here's the thing, Chris. Were you like me when you liked, some of the girls and had kind of a crush on them? You were just looking for any extra detail on that Valentine to make yourself believe that maybe she liked you too, right? You get the Valentine, the generic Valentine from the cute girl that you really like, and you're looking on there going, all right, now I think the fact that she actually turned the dot on the I into a heart, man, right? It doesn't change when you're much older and you're at a bachelor party at a strip club and you really want to believe for 1 minute.
You think the stripper likes you? Okay, I don't know what you're talking about, Jeff.
These are girls that were forced to give you a Valentine, right? And you're just looking for any secret coded message in there that could mean that they actually like you. Did you ever do that?
Yes, I think so. I don't remember quite having yours, but again, yours was a school of rock fights and dueling magicians. And I do remember candies because they all had the different messages, right? The little hard candies. And if you would, I got the one that said, you're super cute or something like that. It's, aha, I got that one intentionally rather than
There you go.
another sort of innocuous message. And did you maybe, again, if there was that girl that you thought, if it was Charlie Brown, it was a little red-haired girl, if you thought this one is significant, maybe you kept it, or somewhere in your bedroom. The rest of them went straight in the trash, right? Because it was something like, man, because January 15th February 15th just rolls around and it's just like, okay, we're done. Valentine's Day is over. Maybe I got some candy, and now we can just go on to the next event that's going to make me feel isolated and uncomfortable. Because again, Valentine's Day was, right, always February 14th. And for you, always again, exactly 7 days after Jeff Thill Day. Around that time, and this particular year that we're looking at, this coming right up, is Valentine's Day dovetails right into what? President's Day, which is the following Monday. Now, when we were kids, we didn't have President's Day. We had 2 different days in February before they decided to be, I don't know, efficient, or like, you know what, we got to knock off one of those holidays and we're going to make it something else. So we had Abe Lincoln's birthday and George Washington's birthday, right? Now, George Washington's birthday, or I would say Lincoln's birthday, was always February 12th. And how did I know that? Because it was the day after my birthday. So even though my birthday was in the middle of winter, nothing significant, like generally it's like, yeah, we're not going to have a beach party or anything like that, or go swimming on or have a pool party because it was February, even though, sometimes in San Diego it was all right. We technically could have done it. The water would have been a little cold. But I never had to go to school after my birthday. So again, my birthday could have been on a Tuesday, and I always had the next day off. My birthday could have been on a Wednesday. I always had the next day off. But then they combined them into the one President's Day because I don't know, I'm sure there's a reasoning for it. Maybe it was when they decided to give, Martin Luther King a national holiday or one of these other days. So they combined them into that one single day that always falls on a Monday. So it gives you a 3-day weekend, right? Which is fine. And then it gives you the opportunity to, I don't know, go buy a refrigerator or a washer dryer because let's go to the President's Day sale and, like I said, pick up some new appliances. But again, it was that sort of evolution. Like I said, you don't know exactly when it is. So what is it, like the 3rd Monday in February or something like that, that became, a holiday, not holiday. But what was a holiday for us? It was a day we didn't have to go to school, right? That was what was important because, yay, I can sleep in and yay, I don't have to get out of bed and, go anywhere, do anything that I don't necessarily want to do. So what a weekend. You got Valentine's Day and President's Day. No pressure there, at least in my house. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, my wife is very, very concerned about the amount of gifts that she gets on President's Day. I'm not sure why. That just happens to be one of the big ones. And I keep saying to her, I don't remember you ever being active in politics. I don't understand what this is. And she's like, hey, listen, no, kidding, obviously. But we do on the birthday in our household, it's not a birthday. It's kind of a birthday month, right? With with my wife, April is birthday April, right? So it's just an entire month of being extra considerate and doing nice things, and that's kind of how that goes down. For a long time, because my wife is born on April Fool's Day, and dating me and or later on being married to me, I did do a lot of pranks and practical jokes on that day. And sometimes I would plan them for days or weeks in advance. And so I think the post-traumatic stress that she endured all those years from having me do some weird thing on her birthday, each one trying to top the other year after year, we finally came to the conclusion that maybe enough is enough and we should just kind of chill out and have a nice April altogether. But I like the imposter days, right? Which was, Chris, you and I remember that in grade school, we had to learn about the meaning of Arbor Day and the meaning of Armistice Day, right? Those were 2 that everyone learned about, or at least I did, in grade school. Mm-hmm. But I remember looking around the class as the teachers are teaching me about those holidays and thinking, lady, you are not getting through to any of us, because last I checked, I still have to sit in this goddamn chair on Arbor Day.
Exactly.
And Armistice Day does not get me out of school. So
there are no sales.
Tell me all you want about what it means, but unless I'm at home, I don't care, right? And the look of apathy on everyone's face in that classroom as they're sitting in school on Arbor Day and Armistice Day was actually pretty funny. I I think it was a tough audience is all I'm saying.
Well, it was. Get up in the morning and Google it. Today is National Corn Dog Day or something, right? There's a day.
There's a National Corn Dog Day?
Well, there's at least a National Hot Dog Day, I bet. Columbus Day's kind of gone away in a lot of places, a lot of states, and been replaced by other days, Indigenous Persons Day or Cesar Chavez Day or whatever. And then you get a lot of Italians still pissed off about that because Columbus was the father of our country, or not the father, he discovered our country, right? And then, but he also did this and that and the other thing. So it's interesting. Like I said, they've been moving targets, they've evolved, and then so they don't mean the same things that they used to when we were kids.
And just a minor point, Chris, as we all know, Columbus discovered nothing. It turns out there were already people here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he thought he was in the West Indies or something.
That's sort of like stumbling into a part of the city that you've never been to, and you go, oh man, I didn't know they had a Starbucks here. And then saying, hey guys, look, I discovered Starbucks. And the people that actually work in the Starbucks and built the Starbucks and own the Starbucks, they actually might have something to say about that. But I still to this day love that whole Columbus discovered America. Okay, sure, for someone else. But as if, hey, look what I found. It's just so funny to me. All right, yeah, look at you, man. I think you're really onto something, minus the people that have been there for thousands of years before that. But okay. Anyway, but we digress.
Right.
Yeah.
They're always moving targets. They always moved around, and now they've evolved, and we just kind of have to go with it. Some people, like I said, insist that it's still Columbus Day is still a valid thing, but there's still people that want to celebrate Robert E. Lee's birthday, but that's an entirely different discussion.
And let's talk about this, Chris. Let's talk about our favorite duo here, where we do get the day off, right? Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how many times it was explained to us, the difference between Labor Day and Memorial Day, which, by the way, is huge. Obviously, Memorial Day is extremely important and honoring veterans and people that lost their lives, versus Labor Day, which is a totally different thing. In the mind of a child back in the 70s, especially if you're in grade school or junior high school, you just typically don't care about those things. All you know is that they're interchangeable, and that's going to be a Monday that you get off, right? And you get a 3-day weekend, right? That's pretty much all those holidays have to do with anything. But one thing's for sure, Chris, as one of my good friends would tell me, that is the day that inherently makes products like cars and waterbeds cheaper. There's something about Memorial Day, something about Labor Day that inherently makes things cost less money. And that's why you have to go down to the car lot on those days.
Right. Just like the President's Day.
Otherwise, Chris, you're going to miss out on those savings, right?
Like you said, but again, they were moving targets because there's some sort of, is it the first Monday? It's the last Monday in May. It's the first Monday in September, or is it the second Monday, right? Or what? I don't even know. All I know is it shows up and there's no mail, and the banks are closed, as if anybody actually goes into a bank. And I think we've talked about this particular concert, a Labor Day concert back in 1983 with here in San Diego with the Police Synchronicity Tour with the Police and Madness and Oingo Boingo. And we started school the next day. And I remember Sting, of all people, going out there and saying, why do they call it late? And I'm not going to do his accent because that would be really bad, but why do they call it Labor Day and I'm the only fucker working? And we all laughed, right? And it was like, wow, that's Sting. He's quite the comedian.
And then he took his shirt off.
I think he was already wearing like a tank top or something.
Okay. Got it.
Or I'm sure he took it off later.
There you go.
But I mean, we didn't, I never really thought, oh, Labor Day is about the history behind it. We didn't give a rat's ass about the history. We were at a concert.
By the way, complete sidetrack here, but that is the nature of this show. You were talking about who in the world goes into a bank, and yeah, you're right. I mean, anytime I go into my local bank branch or whatever, there is probably how many people in there? 2, maybe 3 people. But Chris, when we were little kids and our mom or dad dragged us to the bank, because they were going to make a deposit or do something, am I incorrect? Wasn't there always a line of people? The bank always had people in there, right? It was like 15 or 20 people. It was going to take you at least 30 minutes to get to a teller back in the day.
Well, generally, and unfortunately, working for almost a decade in the banking industry, I can tell you about it, specifically about the state of banking now. But
all right, but you're not allowed to make it boring.
No, but absolutely. But yes, right now you go into a bank. All I will say is there's generally more people working than people that are in line, which was the opposite. Going into a bank was a lot like going to Disneyland, right? You had to go in the line.
Okay, wait, whoa. Hold on. Now, everybody, please. This I gotta hear. This is good. I want to start with Chris's premise. Back in the day, going into a bank was a lot like going into Disneyland. All right, continue, sir.
Haven't really given this much thought, but follow me here. It's like, first of all, you got the lines, right? And you got
Yes,
the
you do.
line, and it was never a straight line. It was kind of you'd go down, you take 3 or 4 steps. They had the stanchions with that sort of with the rope with like the fake velvet on it, right? Like they were fancy. It's like, this is okay. We're in the line.
Oh yeah.
And you'd stand there, and then you'd go
Bottle service.
and then you'd go and you'd take another right, and you take a few more steps, and then you take another line. So this sort of not a zigzag, but just a left, right, to
Right.
to actually just conserve space. Or otherwise, you have a line starting at the door. You're always, like I said, and you're just like you're looking at your watch, and you're like, how long is this going to take? And you're moving back and forth very slowly. You had your passbook. Okay, remember your bank passbook?
Oh yeah, I forgot about the passbook.
Which was a lot like, and again, they I don't remember when they got rid of it entirely, but remember back in the day, and that's where the really the topic of calling something an e-ticket started, was like, you would go to Disneyland and you'd buy your ticket book, and you'd have 5 e-tickets, and then like 8 or e-tickets were the best ride, right? So you had to like spread those out. It's like, you couldn't go on Space Mountain multiple times unless you wanted to use all 5 of your e-tickets on it, right? So you had to have your passbook, right? There was just a certain structure to, like I said, the waiting and the service and everything about it. I mean, Disneyland's a bit of a stretch, but it was a commitment. It's like, I got to go to the bank, like you touched on. I don't know how long this is going to take. Very specific hours, and everything about it was, like I said, I have to go to the passbook. You had to bring that thing, and they would run that through every time you made a deposit or you made a withdrawal. There's a very technical sort of thing to it. As a kid, I remember having my passbook, and I remember my parents, I could deposit money on my own. I couldn't withdraw money unless they right. Nice little control there for your parents to make sure that you weren't going out and withdrawing $40 from your saving to go to 7-Eleven and buy Wacky Packs. So that one extra part. Now I know my Disneyland analogy may be a bit of a stretch, but again, as you're standing there in that line, and they had that big desk with all the slips, right? The deposit slip and the withdrawal strip, and that pen attached to with a chain, because it was a very valuable pen that didn't even have a cap. Didn't have a cap. And it barely wrote to begin with. You had to put in your account number, and like, I don't know my effing account number. Right. So then you have to, because it was always like really useful to be like 27 different numbers. So then you'd have to like copy it in your little scrawl from the passbook if you had your passbook. The drive-through. Did you ever hit up the drive-through ATM?
Of course. Oh yeah, the drive-through ATM. I totally forgot about that. Oh man, the drive-up window. Yes.
The cool technology with that. Explain that. Take us back to that. I know you remember that.
Oh yeah. I love this. So, and we don't see this anymore, right? Pneumatic delivery of things, right? So that was the little plexiglass cylinder that you would grab from the little drive-through kiosk, right? You pull up, and you can see the person, right, the teller at the window, just like you're pulling up to get your taco supreme or whatever. And then you would grab the little plexiglass tube, and you would slide it open. And when you're done, shoving your cash in there, or your checkbook,
your slip,
deposit slip, yeah. And then my mom was always super cool, because if I was in the car with her, she would hand it to me and go, "Okay, now you seal it up, And then I would seal that thing up, and that was a big deal, being science fiction guy. And then I got to stick it in the little plexiglass tube or the metal tube, right? And then you hit the button and you get to hear that very satisfying boom, right? That was always the noise, the boom. And it would send that little plexiglass tube via, get this, suction, Chris, good old-fashioned suction. And it would send it to the teller, and it would pop up on their end. And my God, that was an elegant technology. Pretty cool. And then they would open it up and da-da-da-da-da and send it back to you and all that. But that was super cool. Not sure why it had to be that way. I guess they thought the bank was going to get robbed or something, and you're not allowed to, like, touch the teller at the window.
The teller, she'd have a big box, and she'd have a microphone. And I'm assuming bulletproof glass. And everything about it was super good, considering you're manually doing all this stuff with a pen and your deposit slip. And it was but at the same time, it was kind of like futuristic. Like, I wonder if the bank tellers ever actually, like, they either hated working the drive-thru or they fought over it. You know what I mean? Because I think there was that sort of, or maybe it was just always empty. And when a car approached, maybe they looked on the grainy ass camera and go, oh, guess what? Here comes somebody's Chevy Chevette. And they're driving in through the the little lane. So then they would walk over, like maybe somebody wasn't sitting there all day long. I'm guessing that wasn't super efficient.
Right.
But yeah, so again, there was that sort of futuristic aspect to it. We actually had that. You can still see them if you go we had that in the grocery store, the pneumatic tubes, where there was tubes up at the front service desk that they would take every time they would take cash and put it in this it was a capsule. And it would shoot back, and it would go all the way. It would run all the way back to the back of the store into, like, the money room, and go down directly into the safe area. They have those at Costco. Next time you're in Costco, you'll look up, you'll see this maze of tubes, or that's where they can make so they don't have to manually take cash back and forth and, like, get robbed in the meantime.
And I'm gonna put out a challenge here, Chris, just for one quick moment, because it occurred to me that in all of the bank heist movies that I've seen, I don't recall if I've ever seen this, but don't you think there should have been at least one where the bank robbers had a schematic of the pneumatic system, and they punch a hole through a wall and they hijack the pneumatic cylinder before it gets to its destination, and they literally just, it comes right to them and they pull it out of the wall? And that seems like that had to have been in a movie. Wouldn't that be an awesome plan? Right? Some giant deposit that is going to happen, and you hijack the pneumatic cylinder. Has that ever happened in a movie? That's something I'm going to ask my podcast listeners. Have you ever seen that? Because it seems like that should have been in a movie. Okay.
I haven't. I think you're onto something, Jeff. But the banks, that was an experience. The one thing you mentioned about going to a bank now, and there might be two people, there's going to be more people working, and there's going to be more people, that are in line. And also, even if you or I go into a bank right now, the odds are that you're 15 or 20 years younger than the other people that are in line, because they don't want to bank on their phone. They don't want to bank on their computer or their tablet or whatever, or even at the ATM, right? So I think it's just, like I said, it's something that's evolved, and thinking about what it was when we were kids. And I tell my kids the same thing. It's like, you don't really have to go into a bank anymore unless you're doing something very, very specific. And even that, they've eliminated. It's like, man, you can do stuff on the phone if you're willing to DocuSign and everything else. You can, it's very infrequently when you have to go in and actually go into a physical bank. And then now, if you do that, you have to make an appointment. So they make sure there's somebody working there to get you to be able to help you with that, right? So
I get you. And for Chris, for me, the only reason I'm ever in the bank is the same tired reason. Hey, yeah, can you give me a new debit card? I've misplaced it. Hi, how you doing? Can you give me a new debit card? I've misplaced it, to the point where there's now a teller in there that's like, hey, Jeff, I'll go ahead and start that up for you. Why don't you just stand over here and we'll get that new debit card going? Yeah, and it's there's a million reasons why that keeps happening. The same reason why I can never find my glasses. I'm always misplacing my wallet, can't figure out where my phone is, open up the pantry, and I'm asking my wife, where's the peanut butter? And then she says, Jeff, it is literally 3 inches from your nose in the center of your vision. You cannot see this. No, I cannot. So Chris, I'm not long for this world. I'm just going to say it. It's only a matter of time before I just end up, by pure chance, without a phone or a wallet or any form of money, by my own stupidity, and I just die out in the desert somewhere or in some strange location. They go, wow, I think the only reason he died was because he just somehow misplaced all the modern conveniences that could have easily averted this situation. What a fucking idiot, right? There will be no excuse. There you go. That's a sad commentary.
That's a really dark viewpoint coming from you. And I think it's...
I'm a realist, Chris.
Well, I mean, come on. But how, I mean, losing your debit card, how do you lose it? Where does it go? Do you ever find it? Because losing a debit card is a pain in the ass because you got to change your PIN, right? And they got to make sure that one is frozen and all the rest. And maybe you can't, I don't know. That to me would seem kind of like a big...
I mean, sometimes, Chris, it's just the obvious thing where it's at the restaurant or the place where I just was and I left it there. But other times it's like, no, good luck. I just will never know what happened to that debit card. And every once in a blue moon, it's because somebody tried to steal your identity or ran through something using somehow your card. I don't know how that happens, but I'm sure they're a lot smarter than me when they're trying to swipe my number. But how about this, Chris, going back to the 70s again, or the 80s, try to imagine people on this, listening to this podcast who may not be Gen X, who may be younger than that, a world before ATMs. What?
Mm-hmm.
Before ATMs. Can you even imagine it, man? You did not have that convenience. You had to go in. And I clearly remember it was sometime, Chris, around the early 80s when ATMs were more prevalent. And it was sort of like a thing where most banks by now had some kind of an ATM, not even at all locations, at some of their locations. And then, oh my God, remember the convenience of bank branches appearing inside of grocery stores? What? Wow, talk about convenient. That was a brand new thing.
Well, I think the ATM especially was sort of like a game changer in that regard. The fact that because again, before that, yes, you had to get to the bank at 4 o'clock, before 4 o'clock or even 3 o'clock, they would close, right? Bankers' hours that they would talk about. And you had to fill out a withdrawal slip. And then you had to stand in that line, right, with your passbook, and to the point of like, and then how much money, and then you try to guesstimate how much money you were going to need because you couldn't get, especially if it was like a Saturday, because otherwise I'm not going to have any money till Monday, right? So no, absolutely. You talk about in the supermarkets, again, taking it back to, I keep going back to the well when I worked in a supermarket. Hey, when I started working in a supermarket, all they took were checks, period, or cash, but you couldn't use a credit card. You couldn't swipe it. You couldn't use Apple Pay. You couldn't use anything like that. So somebody would give a check, which was actually sort of, in a sense, it was a little bit convenient because people could float checks, right?
Oh yeah, you're on the honor system completely. Oh yeah.
And check, cash or check, cash only, a cash only line I don't think you could exist on a cash only line anymore, right? We had those in the supermarket, like the express lane was cash only, no checks.
Oh yeah, right.
And it was just like, there are people that flat out don't carry cash. I don't mind, I'll have some cash. I hate change. It's like, what am I going to do with this change? If I do pay cash for something, and I'm, like, let's say I'm at the grocery store, and then I've got the change, I'm hoping they have one of those little, like, feed starving children things right there, because you get my 67 cents, because I don't want to carry it around,
Right.
So rounding up, sure, I'll round it up. That makes it easier for me. But, the whole thing around banks, and yes, the ATM, or some people like to call it the ATM machine, which is like, no, now you're talking about the automated teller machine. Same thing with a PIN number, right? It's like, no, it's just a PIN. Those are some pet peeves of mine. If you can, I don't know if you have any others.
The PIN number and the ATM machine. Got it.
That was technology. It's like, check this out. I've got a card, but see, even then, it took a while before you couldn't pay for your groceries with the debit card. You'd have to go or pay for anything, right? It was just getting the cash. And then they finally cut out the middle person. No, you can use that like a credit card.
But when you and I were kids at the grocery store, as I recall, almost everybody if it was a small purchase, they would just throw a $10 bill or a $5 bill or a $20 bill. But most purchases, most of the time when you saw someone with a normal grocery cart filled with groceries, they were writing a check every single time, a check. And to your excellent point, it's like you're just saying, hey, just believe me. I have money.
Mhm.
Let me just write you a little note that says, trust me. Just trust me. Yeah, don't worry.
Right.
Look, it's there. And then how many times would those people, I'm sure me included back in the day, think to yourself, well, I definitely don't have money in there, but by the time Monday comes, that money will be in there. So I don't really feel that bad about the fact that I just did this completely on a lie, okay. And then you just hand them the check and it's almost like today, if you were to do that, you'd look at them like, are you really going to let me give you a piece of paper and just assume that there's money in the bank?
Well, see, again, I can describe a scenario for you. It's like, so I'm working in the grocery store. I'd say I'm not even 17 because you had to be 18, but let's say I was 18 or 19, and they call me to check. And then I from wherever I'm in the produce department or whatever, I go up to, clear out the customers and I check somebody out. And number one, and then, yes, they give me their check. And there was this little exercise, and we would write down, they have to see your driver's license, 2 forms of ID. So we write down their driver's license, and then they would ask for a credit card, or we'd have to have a credit card. And then they would think, that people would think, you can charge my credit card if this check is no good. It's like, no, actually, it was just a second form of ID. And we wouldn't write the credit card number on. I would tell people, no, I'm just writing that. I'd write the expiration date and that what it was. So again, it was proved that I asked for 2 forms of ID.
Yeah, you can't check on it back then.
No, but there was something that if there were bad checks in the system, so let's say you would enter, what you would do is you could enter, you put the check in, and it was, you hit like cash out, tender, and rather than like going to 0, you would get these 3 numbers that would go up with 111, which meant the checks were, they had a bad check. And we used to refer to them as like, they were like jail bars, so it was like, so we had put their driver's license number in, and it was in the system. And then it would be like, customer service on 4, please. And then the person, and I'd have to stand like I didn't know what the hell was going on. And then the manager would come over. It's like, and they'd go, oh, okay, well, let's come over. Can you come over to the desk? Because it was essentially, there was a check. There was bad checks. And that was the most awkward thing ever. Okay. Sometimes it was a bona fide mistake. Sometimes they had like, oh my God, I used the wrong check, but other times there was people that were just passing bad checks. And you talk about being uncomfortable at Victoria's Secret, being uncomfortable standing there at a cash register at Vaughn's when you think somebody is trying to pass a bad check. And sometimes you knew it because you could tell by their behavior. And I'm like going, okay, just please get over here and just take this person away so it's not my problem, because I'll just go on to the next customer. So those were the things that, and that sometimes they'd make a scene. Sometimes they'd have little kids. There were no winners because, again, even if it was just a bona fide mistake, it was just uncomfortable and cumbersome. And then the person behind them would always know what was going on. And they'd want to ask, oh, what just happened? It's just like, oh, I don't know. There's some issue there. They might have had a, problem with there might have been a stolen check or something. I'd always make up some bullshit story rather than just say, oh yeah, they come in here all the time and they try to pass back checks. Right. So because the grocery store, that was, that happened all the time. And people may not go to a random department store. Not everybody shopped at a Nordstrom or a Macy's or Broadway or a Bullock's, if we want to go way back. But everybody goes to a grocery store. Everybody's got to eat, right? So that's kind of what would happen.
That's so interesting to know that that's what was going on behind the scenes, because I'd always kind of wondered back then. I mean, nowadays, the thing that does legitimately happen to me, and maybe I'd like to hear that this happens to you too, Chris, because then I will feel better about it. But when I'm swiping a debit card, for instance, especially the ones that now have a chip on it, there's money in there. There's plenty of money in there. It's not a mistake. I'm not trying to screw somebody over. And you run it and run it and run it. And it's like, can't read chip, can't read chip, can't read chip. And then you go, 2 minutes later to a different store or a vendor, and of course it immediately reads your chip. But that moment, right, where it's legitimately just something about that particular machine that doesn't like your card, which does happen nowadays, still to this day, even though I know I have money in there, puts me back into the days when I was, 19 or 21 years old and super scared that I didn't have enough money in my bank account for my ATM card, and you can't help but like second guess yourself, like, am I crazy? I do have money in there, right? What's going on? And then, the person at the other end of the counter is like, oh, sir, that's okay. I'm sure it's just an error. And you're like, yeah, dude, it is an error. But at the same time, your brain's like, shit, I'll bet that guy thinks that I'm trying to scam him and I'm just one of those dudes that does not have money in my account. Damn it. It's embarrassing. I don't know.
It is. And it's happened. You're right. Oh, you tap it, you slide it, you insert it.
By the way, we're talking about credit cards, right?
There's some innuendos in there. I know. I was just going to say, nice.
I'm glad you caught that. All right.
I don't know if that's a nice pull. I think it's a nice catch. No, but absolutely, you're in that situation. And again, it's just like going back to the same well. It's awkward and you're uncomfortable. You're swiping your card and you don't know what is happening on the other end. Now, certain places want you to swipe your card. I'm very clearly 21 years or older. I don't think there's any doubt. Yet there are places that you still have, they want to see your ID and swipe your ID when you're buying alcohol. And it's just like, again, I'm not paranoid, but why? What information is going in? Can't you just read it? Can't you just see the date that it's been a long time? Like, the Joshua Tree was the number one album the year I, became a legal drinker.
How about, can you imagine there being a time back in the 70s or 80s where you had to prove how old you were to buy Sudafed, right? Or some kind of a over-the-counter drug or whatever that has some other use, like, making meth or whatever it is, right? Or not being able to buy spray paint unless someone comes over and unlocks it from the cabinet. Or I've even seen it where these big indelible markers, they're like, dude, no, we need to see how old you are. And you're like, I am almost 60. Is that old enough to buy this giant black magic marker? Well, prove it. Maybe. We'll see. It's gone pretty far since the 70s or 80s where you could literally walk in and buy a gun and just leave and just take my word for it. I'm old enough.
Right. Exactly. But then the paranoia in me goes, somewhere it just got tracked. There's some giant database that tracked that on, February 9th, I bought, Sudafed. I bought Robitussin. Somewhere down the road, that's been logged. Yeah. And it still exists. I think I recently had to buy Robitussin, not for me. But I mean, that, so that part is always a little bit strange. And like I said, it's one thing to show the ID, but do you think this is not a real ID? But to swipe it and to get that information, because again, I'm not paranoid, but I can see the paranoia from here, I guess is my point.
And I guess the other thing that, speaking of being crippled potentially by technology and depending too much on it, is satellites. It occurred to me way back in the day, Chris, when I used to drive vehicles that used, get this, gasoline. I know, weird. I was at a gas station once and they were down. You couldn't get gas because the satellite was down. And that meant you couldn't do anything, right? That meant you couldn't purchase anything at that gas station, let alone gas. You couldn't get your Snickers bar or one of those hot dogs that's on the skewer that's super shriveled up, that's been rotisserie for the last 14 years. You couldn't even get that, Chris. And then it just occurred to me, without satellites, the whole entire store is oftentimes down and all services are like, and you're just thinking, man, these are things that are in the outer atmosphere that could cripple commerce and your ability to move through your day or purchase things or just do business. The satellite? My God, can you imagine back in the 70s and 80s even being concerned for one effing moment about a satellite? The last time you were interested in a satellite, right, was during the Cold War, right? I mean, it's like, what? Satellite? I try to imagine sometimes being back in the 70s and 80s and trying to explain to somebody back then, if you were, time traveling, going backwards in time, you know, about what we're now dependent on. A mother effing satellite could ruin your day, Chris.
It's happened when you're trying to watch TV, if you had like a direct TV or something like that. So, storms and I get it. Absolutely get it. But there was that time we got to pump gas and ahead of time, right? You would just walk up and start pumping your gas. You didn't have to pay ahead of time. You didn't have to walk into, talk to the guy standing behind the counter at AM PM and tell him, fill it up on 4 or $25 on 6. It was always just, I'm going to go and I'm going to, and then people would call them, I had, they would call it, oh, they drove off. They drove off without paying. Think about that for a second. Think about that. You could actually try that to the point, because again, I knew a guy who worked at AM PM and he would tell his friends, oh, just come and get gas and then I'll just mark it down as a drive off. So, okay. It's so.
And because there was no security camera, or if there was one, it wasn't recording to any known recording device. It didn't matter. Chris, how many security cameras do you think back in the 80s? What's the word I'm looking for? Well, not even dummy cameras. There were those. Remember, you could buy dummy security cameras because nobody could afford one. But how many security cameras do you think were just completely useless back in the day because they were showing a screen to the guy inside of what's happening outside? But back then, you can't effing record for 24 hours on anything. Oh, a VHS tape? Okay, maybe. Right? And then after about 4 days, that thing is so effed up that you can't even see anything on it anymore. What are you recording to? Nothing. So it's like, hey, man, what about the security camera? You're like, what the fuck about the security camera, dude? It's not recording anything. Do you think that we're recording 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? On what? It's 1981. On what, dude? Betamax?
Yeah. And the picture quality was terrible. It's like, well, that looks like a guy wearing a white shirt. You didn't see his face because there's only one.
It looked like the goddamn moon landing. It worse.
There's one angle, right? So the one angle. So if you kind of knew, it's just like, well, that guy never turned around. So all I see is the back of his head, and he was wearing a Keep On Truckin' t-shirt. And that at the time, it could have been anybody.
I love the idea, Chris, of the cops eventually showing up to the scene of a crime or whatever, maybe a gas station if it was robbed or something. And what are they going to do? Like in a perfect world, they might show up an hour or two later. And I'm trying to imagine them going to the guy that runs the gas station and say, hey, let's look at your security tapes. And he's like, dude, first of all, I've already recorded over that. Right? That's like, it's not even you. That was hours ago, man. That we're already on to it. Plus, my wife just grabbed the VHS tape and she's going to put, the Battle of the Network Stars on there. We just took that home. I can't even imagine that any of that shit was ever good. Let me go check the security tapes from 2 months ago. We think there might have been 2 months ago. Security tapes? What the fuck are you talking about?
We'll track down this guy who's 5'10", okay, 170 pounds, dark hair, white t-shirt and jeans. Yeah, that narrows it down, right? So it's like,
yeah, black and white, mostly snow.
Yeah, it wasn't HD, right? It was a little jumpy and grainy.
You may as well try to identify the girl who just took off her top on Cinemax, right? Late at night. It's the same exact thing. You can't see shit, man. It's all squiggly lines and snow and all that stuff. By the way, we have said this many times. On one of the future episodes, we do need to go back to late night pay TV and every red-blooded American male's attempt at trying to decode Skinamax.
Well, Jeff, okay, I want to think that you're prepared. Valentine's Day coming up. You still got a little bit of time.
Yes,
your birthday is passed and that whole math 7-day thing. So I guess you're not going into Victoria's Secret, but you have online options. If you change your mind,
You don't tell me what to do.
I won't tell you what to do, but you know what works at your house. You have plenty of time to get prepared for the birthday month,
That's right. Oh, yeah, I got a couple months. Yeah.
right? Because it's a month-long celebration. You got a good, 7-8 weeks for that. All the President's Day. Hey, how's your washer dryer? Is it okay? Is your fridge in good shape?
Yeah, so far so good.
So you might get that sale in. If not, you got some extra time, and then hey, before you know it, you better be ready for Armistice Day. You better be ready for Arbor Day, because it'll be like, wow, seems like we just had Armistice Day, didn't it? Wow, it really snuck up on us. So anyway, I think packed in a lot. Bank holidays, everything like that. Valentine's Day, we only have one Valentine now rather than 31 grimy kids. So until next time, Jeff.
Until next time, Chris.